Hey everybody, today I am out in Nevada with the quickest accelerating Audi ever built and the most powerful Audi. It is, of course, the 2025 RS e-tron GT Performance, which is quite a mouthful, and of course, the close relative to the Porsche Taycan. I'm out here with Roman Micah from all the TFLs, TFL cars, TFL EVs, I don't know, all the TFLs.
TFL
Anyway,
floats.
yes, TFL floats is the one that's missing, but let's take a look at the e-tron.
Wait, hold on, Alex. So Audi was quick to point out that this is the most powerful and the fastest, but it really is the quickest, right?
The quickest accelerating.
Right.
They did say fastest accelerating.
The fastest is really the R8 with the Lambo 10-cylinder, which did 205 miles an hour. This tops out at 153.
Electronically limited 153, mind you. So, because we do have a Taycan top speed that's higher than this, and we all know if you electronically unlocked this, I bet you could approach 200 miles an hour. They just won't give us one of those yet. But let's take a look at the big changes for 2025, because we do see some pretty big changes all the way around. What do you think of the new look? Because they have differentiated S and RS from one another now.
Yeah, I like it. It's very elegant, stylish, and dare I say, cute.
Yeah, why don't you come around to the front so they can see the whole front end. We have, you know, the faux grille thing going on here, the new Audi logo, of course, illuminated. We have these really expensive forged carbon fiber accents below and laser headlights, because the only thing better than an LED is a laser.
You know, Audi's going to hate the word cute, so I'm going to retract that.
Okay.
I'm going to say bold.
I think this looks better than the Taycan. For some reason, I like everything else about the Taycan, especially the Cross Turismo.
It's a little froggy.
The Cross, yeah.
The Cross Turismo. Those froggy eyes.
Exactly. I like the Cross Turismo and the Sport Turismo for the back end, but the front end of the Audi just works for me. And check out these wheels. These are the optional 21-inch wheels on the RS model. We get 265, 35 ZR21s up front, 305s in the back, and summer tires. So we're talking a vehicle with nearly 300 miles of range and some surprisingly big tires in the back. Very, very meaty, and big brakes, of course. 6-piston Brembos up front, carbon ceramics, 4-piston Brembos in the back.
I'm sure this has a full spare tire, doesn't it?
It does not. It has a Can-A-Fix-A-Flat, which we should show you now. Since we talked about the front end, let's talk about the front, because it does have one. But the button, rather surprisingly, is on the door. I don't know if I want to admit how long it took us to find that button, but it was a while.
Longer than ordering breakfast at a Denny's.
Yeah, but under the frunk, we find a surprisingly big storage area, because this platform was designed to accommodate a big front trunk, and that's why it has that really sexy long front end to it. I was able to fit my 22-inch roller bag back there, and then on the side, we get a tiny bit of additional storage space, which I honestly wish wasn't there, because you can see this bag barely fits. We get the Can-A-Fix-A-Flat on that side, and then on this side, we get the inflator and a Porsche branded toolkit. Just, you know, in case I accidentally call this a Taycan or a Porsche at any point in this video, that's why.
You can blame them for putting the Porsche toolkit into the car. I'm all over it.
Yeah, I'm actually fine with that, because, you know, they're not running away from the fact that it's related to the Taycan and the Taycan's fabulous 800-volt architecture, which we are going to take a deep dive into later. But the 800-volt architecture is the reason this is as fast as it is, charges as quickly as it does, and goes as far as it does as well. What do you think about these taillights? I kind of dig these full LED wraparound things, but I wish we got the amber turn signals in the US.
I gotta say, there's a little bit of whiff of Lamborghini about that taillight.
Is that a bad thing?
No, I don't. But these kind of, you know, slits are very Lamborghini-esque.
I'm kind of good with that. We have a much more aggressive splitter down here, or whatever they call that aero treatment at the bottom.
And speaking of Lamborghini, Alex, how long before there is a Lamborghini version of this?
You know,
it's got to be coming, right? It's got to be coming.
I hope it's coming with 2 doors instead of 4 doors, because this is, of course, a sedan. It has an actual trunk. It's powered, of course. It's not a hatch, not a lift back, not a sport back. And there's a reasonable amount of luggage capacity there. We even get a tiny bit more under this little itty bitty floor, but for some reason that is not big enough to insert the dual voltage charge cable that comes with it. It just doesn't fit under there, which, you know, that seems like a little bit of a misstep to me, to not design a charge cord suitable for that. But, you know.
It seems like an afterthought.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe there's going to be an RS e-tron Avant coming at some point. Let's take a look at the inside and the seats now.
Wait, before we do that, hold on.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to get a wide shot And you show them what happens when you open the door.
Yes, because this has the optional hydraulic suspension on it, which we will deep dive on the drive section, but when you open it, it rises up.
How cool is that, dude?
And then when you close the door, command it lower. Come on. There we go. Lowers down.
And that's, of course, for more and better aerodynamics, right?
Now, part of the reason they do that is because the interior is quite low, right, Roman?
Yeah, for old people like me who are decrepit and have a hard time getting in and out of low-slung sports cars, it makes it much easier.
The seating position is decidedly sporty, which means my butt's practically on the ground, my legs are out in front of me, and my arms are out in front of me as well. But, you know, this is a lot more comfortable than a lot of, well, practically anything else in the sporty segment that I can think of. Lotuses, Porsches, etc., other than the Taycan.
Well, it is a sedan.
Yeah, because it's actually, if you're looking for something in that really wicked fast category and you want something that's comfortable and easy to get in and out of, it's gonna be a lot easier to get in and out of than a Lotus.
What would this compete with?
I'm gonna go with Lotus, Taycan, obviously, maybe certain Mercedes models, but there's no Porsche corollary at all.
M5?
Sorry, no
maybe,
Mercedes corollary.
The new M5, sort of, kind of, maybe?
Maybe, kind of.
That's 125. This is...
Yeah,
well,
but you have to be okay with comparing gas and electric.
To a plug-in hybrid.
Yeah, to a...
Want to tell them how much it costs?
Well, this one's $190,000 as we're driving here. So keep that in mind as we're looking around. We're not talking about an inexpensive performance car. This is definitely very, very pricey, which is why we have some of the touches inside. I'll grab the camera from Roman so we can take a look around this interior together. First thing we should do is hit the start button there. Let's pause the banter for a moment and talk about the electrical architecture, because we see some big changes for 2025. The front electric motor, that's very similar to last year's, but we get a new inverter module and new control systems. We get a brand new rear electric motor that's more powerful and more efficient than before, and logically improved inverter circuitry back there as well. That gives the S 670 total horsepower and the RS that we're driving today a whopping 912 horsepower when you're in launch control or in the boost mode. We'll talk about those modes a little bit later in the video. This is 275 more horsepower than last year's RS. In fact, Audi says that the corollary to last year's RS is this year's S. So even though the prices have gone up versus last year, you could actually get better performance for less if you're talking about that current S to last year's RS comparison. The power splits out this way: 536 horsepower in the rear, 356 horsepower up front. Of course, you'll only get the maximum in that boost mode or in launch control. It's all backed by a brand new 800-volt lithium-ion battery pack that has improved chemistry and improved cooling over last year. That allows this to not only give you more power, but regenerate more power back into the battery. We have a peak regen capability of 400 kilowatts, so nearly half a G can be done just on the regenerative braking alone. The battery is also going to charge faster than before with a peak rate of 320 kilowatts. So even though this battery is bigger than last year's, it will take less time to charge and give you up to 300 miles of range. They say this can go 10% to 80% in just 18 minutes. And if you want to take it all the way full, it should only take about 20 to 30 minutes more than that. So this is the kind of long distance road trip performance car that maybe you've been waiting for. On the other hand, AC charging is on the slow side. It will take 12 hours to charge this battery at 9.6 kilowatts because the onboard AC charger is just a little bit slower than I might like. As with the previous RS e-tron GT and the Taycan, what's really interesting about this is that it has a 2-speed transmission on the rear, single speed up front. This is something that has long been promised in other EVs, but so far only Porsche and Audi have actually delivered it and given it a warranty. If you recall, Tesla promised that way back when in the Model S. They kept grenading themselves, and so they just decided to quit that option, and we haven't really seen a multi-speed automatic transmission in any EV out there other than this. That's how this goes 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds, although according to Audi, it could actually go a little bit quicker than that. Behind door number 5, we find not a new NACS or J3400 charge connector, but the CCS charge connector. And for me, that makes a lot of sense because if you want to charge this at 320 kilowatts, your only option in North America is going to be a CCS station realistically. There are a very small number of Tesla V4 supercharger stations that theoretically could charge this at its maximum rate, but if you stop at most Tesla stations out there, you're going to be charging significantly slower. So if you do want a road trip, your Taycan, or of course your e-tron, you want to go to those Electrify America stations because that's what's going to get you 10% to 80% in just 18 minutes. So we are not inundated by screens in here, Roman. I know that's something that you dislike.
Yeah, this only has 2 screens, right? Many Audis have 1, 2, 3, and dare I say 4. And I think that screens have gotten to the point where they are overwhelming to many new car buyers. And get this, the HVAC are actually real buttons that do real things. How cool is that, Alex?
Yeah, we get these kind of piano key toggles here, which I really like. The piano key toggle thing is getting really in, and I'm good with that. What I'm a little bit less good with, I think, is the forged carbon fiber accent. This gives me 1970s Formica countertop vibes, and I don't say that just in here because my Dodge Durango SRT has the same stuff going on, and I get the same kind of vibes in there.
Well, the good news is that is a $8,400 option right there, forged carbon fiber package. So only $8,400. So if you don't like it, you could probably get more.
The bummer though is look at all the other cool stuff that I do want that it comes with.
Yeah, they have packaged it with a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I want the wheels, I want the summer tires, I want the carbon fiber roof. I don't know if I need the other forged carbon fiber bits.
Do you think that if you don't get that package, it all becomes piano black? I'm betting it does.
We will have that answer in the comment section below if we can get a hold of it. But speaking of piano black, yep, there is quite a lot of it. You can see it's very shiny, and we already see some fine scratches. But we have the toggly kind of shifter there that's very in, some extra buttons there for the drive mode. And boy, do we have a lot of drive modes.
Yeah, you've got efficiency, comfort, dynamic, and then of course 3 RS modes for when you're feeling frisky.
I love the fact that these RS modes are very configurable. It's something I've always liked. So for instance, you can choose an even lower height in that drive mode or the standard height. That's when you're really going to get the most pop-up out of the system, is if you've been in the lowest height mode and then you pop out, that's where you're going to get that about 3 inches of lift there.
Now, my favorite buttons are these two on the steering wheel. You want to tell them about the boost and the RS button?
Yeah, so if you want all 912 horsepower, you either have to use launch control or the boost button, and that's going to give you 10 seconds of boost, followed by 10 seconds of recuperation, then 10 seconds of boost if you press it again. Got the paddlies on the back of the steering wheel. I really love regeneration paddles, but not so big a fan of the shiny black plastic buttons.
Yeah, and I gotta say that boost button has been done before. Hyundai has done it and does it with the Engren button, right? Basically does the same thing on the internal combustion engine side. So it's becoming a thing in the auto industry.
Kind of okay with that.
I'm okay with that. I mean, good ideas should be passed, but bad ideas like piano black should not.
Yeah, I do like the electrochromatic roof that's available. We don't have it here. We have the Alcantara coated roof panel there.
And carbon fiber.
Yeah, but that roof panel, basically it's exactly the same as the one in the Taycan, where it has multiple different modules. I think it's what, 9 sections or something up there, and you can shade them out or shade them in, your choice. That's a really cool option. I think that's one I would get.
Yeah, and I gotta say, these are comfortable seats, and you do have both cooled, I'm guessing maybe ventilated, and heated, but you don't have massaging seats.
And you can heat and ventilate at the same time.
Damn, I love the Germans.
Yeah, yeah, they think of everything.
Yeah, I know.
They also think of really cool, really well done fit and finish here. I mean, just check out the curvaceous nature of that panel there and the way that it intersects that section down there. And then we have the Alcantara on the doors. I think they did a really good job with the design. The parts style, I think that's open to interpretation, whether you want this forged fiber thing, but no one can doubt the assembly quality in here.
There is one little niggle that I have, and I've done this in previous Audis, and this one will do it as well. You see how this door handle kind of opens? And, oh, the thing just jumped up. The problem is if you put your hand over here and you open the door handle, you will kind of pinch your skin in between the door handle and the bezel of the door handle. So beware of that.
I think that's an old person problem. Show us the glove compartment where you're going to put your driving gloves and goggles.
That is a normal glove compartment. It does nothing special, and you have a real
I'm actually fine with that too. Like, yeah. No weird electric button. I'm happily surprised that we did not find the release for the front trunk or the glove compartment somehow here in the screen.
Look, how old school is that?
Real air vents.
Yeah,
hallelujah.
Yes.
I am on board. Let's check out the back seat. I'm going to hand this camera back to you while I adjust my front seat.
I will not sit back there. You sit back there because the problem with
Roman does not fit.
The sporty, well, I don't fit, especially with my Hokas. The problem with these sporty sedans is that they have a very sleek roofline, which means, and I will show you what that means because Alex will demonstrate. What does it mean, Alex?
That means we don't have as much headroom as we might like back here. A 6 foot tall person just is not going to be able to do this, and Roman's going to be like that if he is back here. The glass roof is not really going to appreciably help the experience in the back, but
it's better than a 911.
Yeah, legroom's pretty good, and that's the reality. I guess it depends on what you're comparing this to. If you're 911 shopping, which is definitely in this price range, I'm as infinitely more comfortable than that back seat. we do interestingly have this hump here because
why is there a hump there?
Yeah,
is that the transmission? Why is there a hump there?
apparently, when I went to the launch of the Taycan, which interestingly I went for you way back in the before times.
Yeah, you went to Germany, you lucky son of a gun.
You know, they said that even though this was a dedicated EV platform, they decided to make some interesting adjustments to it. So they have actual cutouts in the battery module arrangement here and there in the structure of the body to really have the body, the floorboards, jammed right up against that battery casing. And that meant that things like cables have to go through that little center tunnel there. Also, it adds a little bit of extra rigidity. And that's to just give this as low of a profile, as much legroom as possible.
Or maybe old men like me can be like, I feel so comfortable in the back of this car because it's got a drive shaft tunnel.
Yeah. Maybe,
Even though
I don't
there's
know.
no drive shaft, it has the tunnel.
If you're going to try and put child seats back here, just keep in mind there's not a lot of room. You know, I probably could do it actually if I sat really close to the front, but the latch anchors, they got these doors that, you know, you're always going to lose, and the anchors are really deep in there, so keep that in mind. Also,
do you see this being a family hauler?
You know what? You know, is a closely related Taycan Cross Turismo on the short list for the upcoming baby car? I don't know, but it's a station wagon, so clearly it could be.
Alex, you know what's crazy? And I'm not making this up. The Brits actually do put babies in the back of their 911s. I don't know how we got on Porsches again.
They do.
But they do.
Because, I mean, that's not a bad thing to be reminded of when we're talking about an Audi. And I'm really glad that Porsche and Audi don't run away from each other on the relations of this and the Taycan,
Let me ask you this, and I'm seeing a lot more of this both with Audi and BMW, kind of these fake exhaust humps, right? That signify like, if this were an exhaust car, it would have massive exhaust, but it's not, but we still left the little cutouts in.
Hey, the electrons have to come out somewhere.
That's true.
And that somewhere
is right there.
Is right there. The trunk, nice and big also, and I really appreciate the fact that we have a 40-20-40 folding back seat. So if you do want to put skis in the back of your RS e-tron, you can definitely do that.
You know, this would be an excellent ski car.
It actually would be.
All-wheel drive. You throw on some snow tires if you can find 21-inch snow tires, which I suspect they exist, but probably not.
They probably do.
Yeah.
And roof rack locations, before I hop in the trunk here, you know, there are roof racks available. It doesn't look like we have those typical German screw attachment points under there.
Maybe with the carbon fiber roof, you don't get it.
But I have seen aftermarket roof racks available for the first generation RS e-tron. But let's talk about the trunk comfort index. You know, actually, it's pretty easy to load cargo in here because even though this is a little bit of a cargo slot, it's a surprisingly accommodating trunk, and we have a powered lid.
You know, Alex, since you've become a skinny mini, since you've lost all that weight, I am very impressed by your dexterity and your ability to crawl in the back of trunks. Of course, Nathan did that a long time ago. Can you get out now?
You know, I am unable to get out. Oh, there we go. There we go. You know, the button didn't want to work for me the first time, and I got in the wrong side. I should have put my head over here where the button is, and there was a little bit of groping around for the button.
That's pretty impressive, though.
But, you know, now it's time.
You have a future as a circus clown.
You know, if I had been good, I would have lowered the back seat so I could have escaped through the front. But let's get this out on the road now.
All right, let's take it for a ride.
Okay, and all right, it's time to get the Audi RS e-tron GT Performance. Did I get that right? Out on the road.
You did.
And
tunnel vision.
You do. This is really quick, and that's probably the only time we're going to do that. We're actually going to switch over to a regular dynamic mode instead of the RS mode, because you know what? I think that's already really fun.
Yeah, I have this theory that if you buy a car like the Tesla Model S Plaid or the Taycan or even the Lucid, say Grand Touring, that are in the 2-second range, right? 0 to 60. You do it less than 10 times in your entire ownership of the car. Well, I mean, what's the point of that?
I mean, I might do it a little bit more often than that in our EX30, but not every day. I will say this is a lot of fun, a surprising amount of fun. And, you know, we hit 2.4 seconds on average, just me in the car without launch control.
Yeah, I mean, 900 plus horsepower will do that. And it is certainly a unique experience. And yeah, 10 times, dude, 10 times.
But you know what that means?
Unless you have more than 10 friends. Do you have more than 10 friends?
No, but you know what that means?
Yes.
That means we were not using 912 horsepower.
No, we weren't.
Because we weren't in the launch mode.
Yeah, but you do have the little button there.
We do have the button there,
Yeah.
which gives us that, out here on the road where you can do it in a straight line. You have to get really into a straight line, and then that is a wicked amount of power. It definitely makes you giggle.
Yeah, or it really pisses off your partner if you don't tell them you're about to do that, and they slap their head in the back of the headrest. So it can go either way.
Mm-hmm. The other interesting thing about this is that 2-speed transmission in the back, because if you just floor it in a straight line, you do end up feeling that shift, and it's a pretty firm shift that you get out of the back, because there's this moment where you have only the front motor chugging along, back motor has to shift, but you're still pushing through it with almost 400 horsepower on the front wheels. And that's probably the other thing that people need to realize. Big, powerful EVs like this, they have a little bit of torque steer.
Yeah, you know what I don't understand, though? So the reason that when I drove the previous generation car, they gave for that, at least in the Porsche version of it, was they couldn't get the top speed of the car without having a dual or 2-speed transmission. Mm-hmm. And yet the top speed of this car is only, in air quotes, 153 miles an hour.
Yes, electronically limited, of course, because they want to give something to that Porsche, which has an electronically limited, like 196 or something like that, I think, in the top trims of Taycan.
So theoretically, you could do it with the 1-speed.
Well, no, the Taycan, the 2-speed, almost 200 miles an hour top speed now.
Right, but I'm saying in this one.
This one. Well, yeah, but you probably wouldn't get the performance because you have that really aggressive launch ratio. And then in addition to having a higher top speed, you also have better efficiency out on the highway.
Okay, fair enough. So how does it drive?
It's a lot of fun, I have to admit. The torque steer is a little bit odd at first, because if you haven't driven a EV that's this powerful, almost 400 horsepower, huge amount of torque on the front axle, that's the classic torque steer combination, but they've done a pretty decent job quelling that in here.
Yeah, I like look, here's my issue with all EVs, and I think to a lesser extent this car doesn't have that issue, and that is many of them are soulless, right? Mm-hmm. Without that visceral thrill of the engine and the noise, it just feels like it's an appliance. And I think Porsche and Audi have done a much better job than all of the rest of the EVs in making it feel less appliance-like, but still, it's a little soulless.
And that's where I diverge a little bit. I want my EVs to be quiet.
You're weird.
Here you get the choice of the fake soundtrack, or you can turn the fake soundtrack off, and then you get, not off, because there's still a little bit there, but you can turn it mostly off. You can configure these drive modes. So we can go here, we choose the comfort mode, you can do that. If we go into the RS mode, you can actually have RS1 not just be a sporty mode, but you can have comfortable suspension, standard ride height, quiet sound profile, and that might be where I would leave it. The rapid acceleration, but the relatively soft suspension and the quiet profile, because you get that acceleration, you just get that pure motor whine, and you get, I think the soul is in the performance. The soul is in that quiet experience.
Well, I think one of the ways that they have put the soul back into this car is it has this really trick suspension, right?
Yes.
That acts like a motorcycle when you're carving canyons. In other words, the car actually carves literally canyons like you're on a motorcycle. And when you accelerate, normally in a regular car, what would happen is the front would buck up like a bucking bronco. Mm-hmm. In this car, the back actually comes up. And vice versa, when you hit your brakes hard, the front comes up. And I think that does give it a little bit of uniqueness that no other car has.
And don't worry, guys, we're going to do a launch control 0 to 60 time and 60 to 0 stopping distance at the track in just a second, so stay tuned for that. But I've deliberately turned off the image stabilization on the camera that's on the outside, so you can actually see the leaning or lack of leaning that we're getting here is not due to camera leveling. This is the suspension keeping this almost eerily level.
Yeah, but it's also an $11,000 option.
Yes, but it's probably the coolest option.
Yeah, it does have some cool party tricks, and I have found, especially over the last, let's say, 5 years, the car with cool party tricks do much better in the marketplace. It is pretty much Tesla's marketing strategy, right? It just does cool, fun things.
And here's where this breaks away from pretty much everything other than the Porsche and hopefully the upcoming Polestar, which, we don't know what it's going to be yet because it doesn't exist, but it's in the handling. This has more soul, more feel. It feels more connected on roads like this than the Model S. Even the Model S Plaid has a much softer tune to its air suspension. This hydraulic suspension is much more dialed in, really, really planted.
Yeah, I completely agree, Alex. The one thing that has separated Tesla from the, let's call them legacy OEMs, traditional OEMs, if you want to be nice, is the fact, of course, that they've had much better infotainment, much better technology. But the one thing that the traditional OEMs have had is suspension tuning, right? That's hard. Suspension tuning is very hard, especially if you want to make it feel grown up. If you want to do that magic thing where it's compliant and yet sporty, that is a hard thing to do.
It is very hard. And I will say that Tesla in the comparison, this is the best way to describe it. The Model S Plaid is much more of a one-trick pony than this. Maybe a two-trick pony because it's got the infotainment system a lot of people like, but 0 to 60 is its thing. It doesn't have the grip. It doesn't have the stopping ability that we find here. This has that and the bonkers 0 to 60 time, the traditional performance car values of handling, grip, feel, etc. Bearing in mind electric power steering, torque steer, so, you know, not the same kind of steering feel that you used to get when hydraulic power steering was around, but pretty good for a modern car.
Yeah, and the weird thing about Teslas is it's actually hard to tell a Plaid from a regular S, right? Unless you see the little Plaid thing. And I've always loved how traditional car companies have made the sporty version, you know, much more aggressive. So like if you look at this car from the outside, you've got these giant carbon ceramic brakes, right? You've got these giant brake rotors, these really cool wheels. I mean, this thing says, I am the top dog of the Audi lineup. There is no doubt.
But what it also has, I think, is kind of a, you know, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality, because the suspension's really comfortable actually here.
Look, are we in comfort mode?
We are in comfort mode.
It feels incredibly compliant. Right, we're hitting these patches in the road and you can't even feel them. And the crazy thing is, we're rolling on 21s.
Yeah.
I mean, you should feel like a pregnant ant when you run over it.
Really low profile. Wow, pregnant ant. Really low profile tires in the back. 305 with tires.
I only think the Queen gets pregnant.
That's, yes.
And she is big.
She's a big ant. But
so
you know,
there is a little bit to it.
Hey, this is a 5,000 pound sports car. It does not feel like it's 5,000 pounds. I think it hides the weight relatively well.
Cool. Yeah.
You know, corners like this, the softer suspension, I think this is the most appropriate tune for this road surface because it doesn't knock my teeth out. My kidneys are not getting bruised. You probably don't want to come into some of these corners too hot because that weight's going to really come in.
Yeah, you're going to figure it out.
You're going to figure it out real soon. When you do find the limit of those tires, you know, there's going to be a lot of mass rolling into that corner.
And it's also an all-wheel drive car, so it's just naturally very neutral, right?
But let's go to the RS Performance and see the difference in the suspension. It's not rock hard still because we have the hydraulic dampers that can change the personality at a moment.
Oh, there you go. Now you can start to feel it.
But you definitely feel, let's go on these, you definitely feel those little vibrations in that center divide there a little bit more. The whoops, you definitely feel those here. We should talk though about some of the other things that really separate this from a Tesla Model S. And some of the other competition, which is the ability to regenerate brake in this. Regenerative braking is really extraordinarily high. If we look at this gauge over here, which you probably can't see on camera, but you have to get pretty aggressive on the pedal before you actually hit the limits of regen, and it starts blending in those friction brakes. You got to get to about there. Yeah. That's beyond that limit.
I think they said, what, 0.35 of G of regenerative?
I thought it was 0.4. Either way,
it's
really high.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a really high number. 400 kilowatts back into the battery. And this has probably the best blended braking system that I've ever felt. The brake pedal doesn't feel weird. When you cross that threshold, not to make us sick here, but when you cross that threshold between regen and friction braking.
You can't tell.
Yeah, it feels really good.
Yeah.
And unlike other vehicles, probably because of the really wide tires back there, even on...
Are they staggered?
They are, yeah. 305's the back, 265's up front for this one. Even on some of the, you know, looser surfaces that we were on with the more aggressive braking mode, it doesn't have that rear tire gets disconnected and then the system gets confused thing going on that we find not just in a lot of Teslas, but also, you know, the Volvo EX30 that we have at home. It definitely does that. This does not do that. It's really elegantly dialed in. So, you know, I'm surprised by the cabin noise or the lack thereof, given the fact that we have 305 with summer tires in the back.
Yeah, you know, while you were doing some acceleration tests, I was on the outside filming you, and it is surprisingly loud.
Yes.
And it's surprisingly quiet in here.
That is the funny part. Like for an electric car that's supposed to be, you know, electric and quiet, and people think those are synonymous. On the outside, to get 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds you're going to hear a reasonable amount of tires squeak and everything else.
You're tearing out pavement, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, we probably lost a decent amount of tire trying those runs. And that's the thing to know is, like, if you get a good launch, which again, we're going to see in a moment, you could definitely get faster than 2.4. You're really tire limited here because there's a lot of wheel slip going on to try and harness all those ponies.
Yeah, and then in terms of efficiency, you know, 278, I think officially is. Yeah. The problem with that 278 number is that it's an EPA number, and your times and charge speeds and range will vary.
Exactly.
By a lot.
And admittedly, we have been driving this up to 8,500 feet, yes. So that should be factored in. But we averaged 1.8 miles per kilowatt hour so far, so
that's not great.
You know, somewhere under 200 miles.
Our Tesla Model 3 Performance was getting 2.8. So that is not a great number. That is just a little bit above what the Ford Lightning was getting that we had. I think we were getting 1.6 in the Ford Lightning, and we're getting 1.8. But it could be because we've been, well, let's face it, you've been driving it.
We have been driving a little hard.
A little fizzy.
The Taycan, though, the Taycan Turbo, which is definitely a close corollary to this, can get 3 miles per kilowatt hour out on the open highway without treating it too gently. So, you know, 300 miles of range, you know, yeah, that's EPA rated, which is averaging about 48 miles an hour, guys. Keep that part in mind for the regular base version of this, but properly configured with a lighter foot, you could definitely get reasonable highway range. I think the big thing, though, is that quick charging time. So, yeah, you're gonna have to stop on your San Francisco to Los Angeles drive at least once, but not for very long. All right, guys, let's see what the 0 to 60 to 0 time is out here on the track with launch control. And keep in mind, guys, we're only at 59% state of charge. This is not a completely full battery at its highest voltage possible. That is going to affect the performance, but still should be pretty impressive. Let's see. And we're already at 60. And that was 2.24 seconds at 59% state of charge. So Roman, it's time to get down to brass tacks. How much more do you think this is going to set everybody back than last year's RS?
$14.95.
No, more like $20,000 really, trim to trim. So S and RS are about 20 grand more than last year's appropriate trims, but Audi says that this year's S is as quick or quicker than last year's RS. So if you look at it that way, it's actually about $20,000 less.
Yeah, you get more of everything, right? You get quicker acceleration, you get more horsepower, you get more blue.
More blue?
More blue, yeah.
I love the fact that we get the bigger battery and actually 300 miles of range finally, which apparently is everybody's magic number for an EV for some reason.
Except the Chinese, they seem to go much higher.
That's true. If you get this model though, then you're looking at under 280 miles because big sticky summer tires, 912 horsepower is happening. So obviously that's going to cause a problem. And Roman, what was the total on this model?
190.
Yeah, $190,190. 190, 190. It's very symmetrical. Basically 200 grand, you know, out the door for a wicked fast Audi that, you know,
is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but what else are you going to cross shop against this?
A Porsche.
A Porsche. And you know what? Volkswagen Group is going to be totally fine with that because whether you bought an Audi or you bought a Porsche, you bought the car from the same company. And I cannot really think of anything else that I would compare against this.
Grand Touring, $135,000.
Yeah, but it's bigger. It's not the same.
And if you wait a year, it's $65,000.
True, but it's not going to be as sporty as this. It's not going to be as direct as this. This is a lot more compact.
Tesla Model S Plaid, if you wait a year, $50,000.
S Plaid is pretty quick, but also not going to drive like the e-tron. And that is sort of the question. Yes, you can get things that will go as fast, 0 to 60, as this, but you're not going to get anything that drives and feels like the RS GT.
Well,
that's the question, though. Do you want to go fast, or do you want the room?
I want the room.
You want the room? So you want the bigger back seat.
I need the room of the Lucid, and I need the room.
You want the bigger here.
But I do love the sexiness, dare I say, I would say exclusivity, because it seems like Model S Plaids are everywhere now.
They are.
And Lucids, well, you know about Lucids. So
this is more attractive to me. This is prettier than any of those options.
It's a very pretty car. They've actually now made it much more competitive with the Porsche, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love the lines, especially here, the big haunches that we get in the back, the big light modules, it just looks fantastic, I would say.
yeah, Audi knows how to build a nice looking car.
If Audi's listening though, the one thing I want though is an Avant.
Well, there is an RS6 Avant, which is an internal combustion engine car, but
But
it might cannibalize the sales of that.
I'm gonna go with though, if you're shopping for one of these, you've already decided to make the leap to electric. So I don't know if this customer is shopping an M5, etc., because maybe they already have one. And maybe they're looking for an electric option for the daily commute or whatever, and they're shopping in this direction. And that's where the lack of competition really comes in for me, because there is no BMW corollary. There really is no Mercedes corollary either. We have the promise of an upcoming Polestar. I mean, Polestar 5, 6?
Look, here's what I want, okay? If you want to make me jealous, here's what you do. You already have a 2-inch lift. Throw on some ATs. Throw on, there you go. Throw on some off-road lights. Make bigger, fatter wheel wells. Throw on some underbody coating and call it the Audi Cross Turismo. Oh, Porsche does that already. Never mind.
I'm telling you, Audi RS e-tron GT Performance Avant. They could have dibs on the ultimate electric sports wagon and the longest name in America there with that RS e-tron GT Performance Avant. Yeah, there we go.
Mojave.
Yeah, Mojave edition with some
Exactly.
fender flares. Anyway, see everybody later.
Ciao. Nice.